I'm 70 years old now, and there's a quiet in my house that wasn't here when I was younger. It's the kind of quiet that presses against your ears at night, the kind that makes you hear your own breathing. That's when I finally decided I couldn't carry it anymore. That's when I told my children the truth.
I didn't plan it for years. I didn't rehearse. I just woke up one morning with the feeling that if I didn't say it now, I never would. And if I never did, it would go with me into the ground, and they'd live the rest of their lives never knowing who their father really was. Time does that to you. It shrinks. It stops pretending you've got room to maneuver. At 70, you don't think in decades anymore. You think in seasons, maybe in birthdays, maybe in how many times you'll see the leaves fall again. I used to believe there would always be another chance to explain myself. When I was younger, I thought truth was something you could postpone, like a letter you keep meaning to write. I told myself I was protecting them. I told myself it wasn't the right time. I told myself they didn't need to know. What I didn't admit was that I was afraid. I was afraid of how they'd look at me once they knew. When my children were small, I was a solid man to them, predictable, dependable. I went to work every morning. I paid the bills. I fixed what broke. I sat in the bleachers. I carved turkeys. I drove them to school and told them to be careful. From the outside, I did everything right. Inside, I was carrying something I never talked about, something I'd decided long before they were born would stay buried. I grew up learning how to stay quiet. My father wasn't cruel, but he wasn't open either. Feelings were handled privately or not at all. You did your job, you showed up, you didn't make trouble by saying too much. So when I made the choice that would shape the rest of my life, I learned how to live with it by never naming it out loud. In my 20s, I was ambitious, not in a flashy way. Just determined not to struggle the way my parents did. I wanted stability. I wanted respect. I wanted to be seen as someone who had his act together. I also wanted something else. Something I didn't have words for back then. I met their mother when I was young. She was kind, steady, and she believed in me. That mattered more than I realized at the time. I married her because it made sense, because it felt safe, because it was what came next. I cared about her. I still do. But there was a part of me I locked away early on, and I told myself that was what men did. You choose a life and you live it. You don't examine every feeling. You don't ask too many questions about yourself. I thought that was maturity. As the years passed, I got good at playing my role. Husband, father, provider, people trusted me. My children trusted me. They believed the version of me I showed them, and for a long time I convinced myself that version was enough. But there were moments, quiet ones. Late at night, or driving alone, or watching other people live more honestly than I ever dared to. Moments when I felt a dull ache I couldn't explain. I didn't cheat. I didn't run off. I didn't blow my life up. I just slowly disappeared inside it. I chose productivity over presence more times than I can count. I stayed late at work because it was easier than sitting with myself. I focused on being useful instead of being known. I thought if I kept everyone comfortable, no one would look too closely. My children grew up thinking their father was calm, maybe a little distant, but reliable. They didn't know that every year I told myself I'd say something. They didn't know how many times I stood in the kitchen watching them do homework and thought, someday I'll explain. Someday never came on its own. Years went by, they became teenagers, then adults. They moved out, built lives, had their own worries, their own families, and I stayed the same man to them, the version that fit neatly into their understanding. Then their mother got sick. Illness has a way of stripping things down, of making the future feel very short. I watched her become smaller, quieter. I watched her face things with a grace I'm not sure I deserved. Before she died, she asked me if there was anything I regretted. I said no. That's a lie I still hear in my head sometimes. After she was gone, the house changed. The silence deepened. The structure of my life collapsed in small, ordinary ways. No one to check in with, no one to notice when I drifted. Grief does strange things. It doesn't just hurt, it reveals. For the first time, I was alone with myself without distraction. No roles to hide behind, no schedules to fill the space. That's when the truth started pressing harder. I wasn't just lonely because my wife was gone. I was lonely because I'd never let myself be fully seen by anyone. Not her, not my children, not myself. I started thinking about what would happen if I died tomorrow, what stories my children would tell about me, what they'd believe. They'd say I was a good man, a quiet man, a little hard to read. They'd never know why, at 70, the body reminds you that time is not negotiable. Things hurt that didn't used to, doctors speak carefully, friends start disappearing. I realized that keeping my secret no longer protected anyone, it only protected my fear. So I called my children and asked them to come over. I didn't tell them why, I just said it mattered. We sat in the living room, the same room where they'd opened presents and argued and laughed. I could see their faces, older now, worn by life in ways that made me proud and sad at the same time. My hands were shaking, that surprised me. I've handled harder things than a conversation, but this was different. I told them I loved them. I told them there was something about me they didn't know. Something I should have told them a long time ago. Then I said it. I told them that I had spent most of my life hiding a part of who I was. That I had lived a life that looked complete from the outside but felt unfinished on the inside. That the truth was, I had never been fully honest about myself. I told them I was gay. The words sat in the room between us. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't apologize for existing. I just told them the truth. I told them I had loved their mother in my way, but not in the way she deserved. I told them I stayed because I thought staying was the right thing to do. I told them I was wrong. There were tears. Confusion, silence, questions I couldn't answer cleanly because life rarely is. They asked why I hadn't said anything sooner. I told them the truth again, because I was afraid. Because I thought there would be more time, because I thought I was doing the responsible thing. One of them asked if any of it had been real. That one hurt. I told them yes. The birthdays were real. The bedtime stories were real. The pride I felt was real. But the absence they sometimes sensed was real too. You can do everything right and still leave something important undone. They didn't storm out, they didn't reject me, but something shifted. Trust doesn't break loudly. Sometimes it just bends and stays bent. I don't know what our relationship will look like in the long run. I know it won't be the same. Some things can't be retroactively fixed. That's part of what I'm living with now. I think about all the ordinary moments where honesty could have made things lighter, kinder. I think about how much energy I spent maintaining a version of myself that felt acceptable. Regret doesn't come from failure as much as delay, from waiting until the cost is permanent. If I had told the truth earlier, maybe the damage would have been different, maybe less. Maybe just honest damage instead of silent erosion. Now, at 70, I wake up knowing I've said it, knowing my children know me more fully than they did before. Even if that knowledge complicates things, there's a strange relief in that, a sadness too. I can't get back the years where I could have lived more openly. I can't give their mother the partner she deserved. I can't rewrite their childhood with a braver version of myself. All I can do is stop lying now. If you're listening to this and you think you have time, I understand. I thought that too. Time is very convincing when it's still ahead of you, but it moves quietly.
I'm not here to tell anyone what choices to make. I'm just a man near the end of his life telling you what it cost me to wait. Tonight, my house is still quiet. But it's a different kind of quiet. Not empty, just honest. That will have to be enough.